Welcome, everyone. No power. Can y'all hear me? Call the meeting to order. Please stand with us. We'll be led in prayer by Alderman Gallagher. Please remain standing. For the pledge of allegiance, let the Alderman's name.
Heavenly Father, thank you again for the chance to meet here, Lord. Thank you for all the people present here and all the people present in our city, Lord. Lord, I pray for your blessings on the city of Southaven, Lord, and let us not forget to do good to others as Christ showed in his example. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michael, is that adequate volume? Y'all hear that? Okay. Okay. First on the agenda is approval of minutes for the March 5, 2019 meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 5th, 2019 with any additions, deletions, or corrections. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
And that motion carries. Next on the agenda is the acceptance of the Greenbrook indoor softball facility bid. Wes, will you come forward? Mr. Brian Buller with Urban Art is also with us.
Some time ago, we went to bid for the indoor facility at Greenbrook. It came back a little higher than anticipated. Two reasons: the scope of the project changed because we couldn't place the building where we wanted to, and then just the market. Contractors are busy, and things are a little higher now. But it came back at $1.152 million, and Urban Art is recommending we move forward with the bid.
And the difference in the location had to do with underground sewer line that we didn't know about that was under the parking lot or on that side of the parking lot, so we had to adjust it based on that. So that's what Wes is referring to. There was some other design issues that we ran into, but we're good to go now. And then basically, Fullwood is the lowest bidder, correct?
Full construction.
Right. Yeah. And Fullwood is the one, they have done work for us before. They did the Snowden project where we added bathrooms and concessions back in 2016, I believe. They've also done work for the City of Olive Branch, and we heavily discussed that. And I won't speak for Brian, but you believe they're qualified to do a good job for us.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I did speak personally with Todd Buller, the owner of Fullwood Construction. He said they're ready to honor their bid. We've worked with them on several projects, and we do know that they're capable. He's just got to make sure he's got a good project manager, as any GC would have to. But good superintendent, a good project manager, and I think they're going to do a fine job. Knowing that he has had project history with Southaven, we just wanted to double check with him to make sure that he was ready and really amped up to serve you guys, and he said he was. So they're ready to take on the challenge. And regarding the costs and the issue with moving the building, the mayor mentioned a sewer pipe that was under the way, and where we really, the only location we could put it there for was also a little more expensive because we had to do some site demolition of existing parking lots and other things. So that's part of what he alluded to there. So I'm here for any other questions y'all may have. It's going to be a nice facility.
And actually, when we did our park enhancement and expansion plan, I had 1.2 keyed in. I don't know what numbers or what we were expecting, but when we initially did the board approval for the expansion plan, it was keyed in at 1.2. So
It came down at some point when we actually got to the nuts and bolts of the design.
Yeah.
We brought it down to $1 million.
I'm just saying, like with the previous board action, when we did our initial planning, we were expecting 1.2. So it's really not. I guess it's not as bad a news as as we initially thought.
We thought we were gonna have better news, but
Okay, there you
as
go.
it is, you just,
We'll do better
you're
next
within
time.
you're within your original budget.
Okay.
So, Mayor and Mr. Bullard, when we talk about moving it, are we talking about from the original location or from the, because we had talked about at one time, it was down kind of in the lagoon area,
Right.
in the hole, and then we moved it up to the parking lot. Is this, are we having to move it back again?
No, it's still, it basically will be situated right adjacent to, what is it, the main entrance into,
The main entrance right there by Field 5, it'll have a plaza entry. Where we had anticipated there's a sewer line that's 30, 40 feet deep, you can't build on it. And then when the soil test came back, apparently 50 years ago, that was a lake. And
Yeah.
the soil
Right.
was.
And it, I think
not
I know your question, because when we first talked about it, we had it more towards Stowewood, and the building was shifted in a different direction, so that's where the sewer line was. So that's when it was moved, and then again, like Wes said, that's when we ran into the soil issue, so we had to shift it again. But the basic change is it's up closer to, do we have a
we
photo?
have a site map.
It's up closer to the main entrance, so like,
Got it.
y'all visualize with me for a second, if you turn in
Is the main entrance off of Greenbrook?
off Greenbrook Parkway, so if you turn in off Greenbrook Parkway in the parking lot there, and you dead end into what is the entrance, it's in that area. It's gonna be tighter towards the entrance as opposed to be further south than Stowe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually situated much further away from the existing residences and from Stowewood than it ever was, so.
Well, I think that makes me feel a little bit better, because I was just a little concerned what it would be like for the residences that are on Stowewood, having it so close to them that where they used to have the view of the ball fields and all that, that it was basically, they're just seeing a.
Well, this design is better for that
Right.
regard.
Okay.
Yes, it's definitely a more sensitive situation,
Good.
and situated further away from the residences and the roadways. And honestly, it will serve as sort of a nice new entry feature because of where it's going and because of grade differences that we had right there. You'll get a little bit of a, kind of a bonus, that you'll be able to utilize this building and the sidewalk in front of this building as a plaza, so to speak, to sort of enter that section of the park.
Okay.
And we did toss around a few other ideas, like moving it further across the parking lot towards Greenbrook Parkway, which would be further away from most of the residences. But then we have concerns about the teams when they check in, having to park twice, having to go check in, then get back in their vehicle, cross the parking lot, and go to the entrance. So this layout solves that problem. So like people will park once on their way into the park, they'll go into the facility for our tournament director, take care of all their business there. Then if they're meeting their team, like they're gonna take batting practice before the game or something, they're all there to have a good meeting place at the facility before they go into the grand entrance. It's got a good layout. I mean, from a practicality standpoint, it's got an excellent layout.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the bid as presented for the Greenbrook indoor softball facility.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Any more discussion?
Motion will include the forward construction in the amount of what was it?
It's $1,152,000.
So we have it read out
$1,152,835.
for that's the motion, and authorize the mayor to sign any and all documents, all contracts for the low bidder.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoop.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you, Brian. All right, next on the agenda is the MOU with Olive Branch for the Bell Point residential subdivision.
Mayor Board, this is an MOU with Olive Branch to help, their part of Bell Point is being built in Olive Branch, and the flow of the sewer will come to the city. And so this MOU will allow that flow of the section 1 of this Bell Point subdivision expansion in Olive Branch to come to the city. It's about 22 homes, and that formula has been agreed to Olive Branch and our engineers and utility department to allow them to pay us, the city, what we we'll charge Olive Branch once a quarter for letting them for letting them sewer flow through us and go through the crew. So tonight, just need authorization to approve the MOU with Olive Branch to allow them to have the phase 1 of Bell Point and Olive Branch sewer flow to come to the city of Southaven. And like I said, they'll be paying us once a quarter at the rate, at a standard rate that we use as the formula that's been approved by the engineers.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for the city of Southaven to provide law enforcement assistance during civil emergencies.
Yeah, this resolution is just in case resolution, in the event that the city of Southaven is called by other entities across the state to help provide police for those events or for any type of parades or protests. In the past, we've maybe gotten called in the past to help with these items from our police department. This resolution will allow the city of Southaven to send police officers in for those purposes, as long as the mayor and police chief approve it, and it's done pursuant to the Mississippi Code statute. So tonight's authorization for the mayor to sign this resolution in the event it comes up again in the future that the city is requested to have police help at certain events throughout the state.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Just a little bit more information. We have had these requests, not frequently, but a couple times during the last 2 years. There was an issue where there was an escaped prisoner in a city at one time down south. We were prepared to send someone at that time, and there's been some other requests, even closer with like a public disturbance type thing. Some of the issues with statues and things like that have been going on in Memphis and some of the surrounding cities. They've reached out to us regarding those. So those are some of the most recent type examples of where we've been asked to send some for assistance. A lot of times it's not a direct plan for them to be there, but more so just to be on call in case something does get out of hand.
When we do disaster relief, there's often several different police departments, and it's not just the state, but other states also. So that would be another example.
Good example. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is an MOU with DeSoto County for the State Line Road West Bridge.
I've talked about this in the past. DeSoto County has agreed to contribute up to $200,000 for this project. The MOU specifies that they'll pay the city within 45 days of going to bid, or within 45 days of awarding the contract. Also, they'll have to spend the money, or have the money obligated by July 30, 2021, which shouldn't be a problem because that's the contingency that MDOT places on the money too. So tonight, and in addition that we don't spend, or that we don't have to use the full $400,000, $200,000 for us, $200,000 from them, we'll reimburse them, so they only pay 50% of what we pay as well. So tonight, authorization for the mayor to sign the MOU with DeSoto County for them to contribute up to $200,000 for the for the State Line Road West Bridge.
So moved.
We have a motion by Alderman Hoots, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion?
I meant to add that DeSoto County supervisors approved the same MOU yesterday morning at their meeting.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Southaven Fire Department surplus and agreement with Northwest Community College.
This is just surplus of some stretchers from the City of Southaven Fire Department. The agreement sets forth the terms that were intergovernmental agreement with Northwest Community College. Agreement sets forth the terms of the city not having any liability for the stretchers and that they'll come and get the stretchers. So tonight, authorization to surplus the stretchers and authorization for Chief Skaggs to sign the agreement with Northwest Community College for this, or Chief Skaggs or the mayor to sign the agreement with Northwest Community College for the actual surplus of the stretchers to them as an intergovernmental transfer.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Hoots. Just to add to that, Chief Skaggs did tell me this morning that that there's a more modern stretcher out there now that is safer for the backs of our first responders. It has some type of lift mechanism on that, which is better for us. So these are the old style ones that did not have that feature. So they'll use that obviously in their education classes, and then we'll have the more modern stretchers at this point. So that's good from a workers' comp standpoint, right, Mr. Wilson? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for license for P. Walker Travel and Tours, doing business as the Walker Group.
Yeah, this is a first in a while. P. Walker Travel and Tours is actually owns a bus, and they do tours throughout the southeast or this area. And this code requires, if you operate a bus, you get a resolution approving it by the Board of Aldermen. So tonight, he's provided a $500 bond. It's also going to be a home-based business. The bus we parked, he informed our clerk's office, the bus we parked in Memphis. So since it will be having his office will actually be in Southaven, we are asking him to get the resolution approving the bus and the business. And so he'll be licensed as a home-based business and get the medallion that's allowed under this resolution for the license for the bus. And he's provided information required for that. So tonight, authorization for the mayor to sign that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Gallagher. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for Southaven Police Department surplus.
And this resolution just allows for the surplus of certain vehicles that have cleared the court proceedings, and he authorized the surplus in accordance with 1725-25 of this code.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Southaven disposing of seized property in the police department and disposing in accordance with state law.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for sanitation assessments.
This is just a resolution for the assessment for those individuals who have not paid the sanitation fee, allows for the lien or the tag assessment pursuant to 21-19-2.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution for assessing unpaid sanitation fees.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is our planning agenda. Ms. Whitney Cook.
Yes, sir. Our first application is a subdivision application for Lot 17 of Silo Square Commercial Subdivision, and also 3 portions of the local collector roads within that subdivision. Silo Square is going to be on the west side of Getwell Road between Nail Road and Goodman Road, as I'm sure you all are aware of. Lot 17 is 1.053 acres. This is going to be a lot on the south side of our future May Boulevard is going to be, and it is behind the front out parcels on Getwell Road. It is compliant with the bulk regulations we have set forth in the ordinance for commercial lots. We have no comments regarding that. In terms of the right-of-way, here on the application, there are some differences that we have here as opposed to a normal residential subdivision. Normally, when a plat comes in front of the Board of Aldermen, You have the curb gutter, soil, cement, and the bottom layer of asphalt already in place. I'm sure, as you know, it's been raining quite a bit. We do have the curb and gutter in place. Soil and cement is not in place as of now, but it is in the process. The plat would come in front of the board for approval. After that, a bond is calculated to put the final lift of asphalt in. Subdivision agreement would be compiled in my office and put in place. We would take the Mylars that are approved here. We'd have the mayor and the city clerk sign them. We'd go record them. Then the final lift of asphalt, the bond would be held until 80% of those lots was built out in that particular phase of the subdivision. What we found with this, and the request you see in front of you, is this is kind of different in a sense that this is not a residential subdivision, which is where that ordinance kind of caters to. The 80% rule was kind of throwing everybody for a loop. I did ask Dan to kind of look into it. I spoke to the mayor about it. And to summarize, what the developer is asking for on this is twofold. Brian is asking for approval prior to the soil and cement layer and the bottom layer of asphalt in, but he is not asking for recording. You can't record, obviously, until the mayor and Andrea sign the plat. He doesn't plan to do this until he knows that bottom layer and hopefully a final layer of asphalt come in October. But he would like to get the approval process out of the way so he can get funding started with the bank and so he can get his bonding procedure started with the bank. The second portion of his request is that he is allowed to put the final lift of asphalt on, obviously, prior to an 80% completion, because in a commercial development such as this, that could be 10, 12 years from now. This is a lot of traffic on a local collector street, which would not just be people shopping here or residential, because it's not residential, but it would be collector road of a sense. So his request is to be able to put the final lift of asphalt there. As an argument at that, he has agreed and actually offered beforehand to put heavier duty roadway on there. It's something we've been already looking at from an ordinance standpoint. We do believe that the specs out there for roadways are not quite as strong as we need. There's a lot of deterioration in our roads, and we wanted to look at some different specs to put out there for roadways and kind of redefine the categories. Dan can speak a little bit more on that behalf. The developer has offered to put different thicknesses on the compaction layers, the sub layers, and obviously the thickness of the asphalts, which he believes will sustain better traffic on there. Dan has also compiled a bond amount and a maintenance bond amount, which in the end will finalize the patching and also put a thin layer of asphalt on the top at a completion rate whenever the city decides to put the final layer of asphalt on, which will not be a normal thickness, but it's a thin layer of asphalt to give it a new road appearance. And in summary, that's what the request is. Like I said, Dan is in the audience, Brian, the developer, is also in the audience. It's not a standard request. Our ordinance really doesn't cater to this type of request, so it's really kind of a board decision. But I wanted to summarize it for you. Planning Commission did vote in favor of it. Per Civil Link's letter, they feel like the bond that they can put in place will protect it if we so decide to do this. So I guess we'll just leave it to questions, and like I said, they're both in the audience.
How thick a final layer are you talking about putting down? You said a thin layer.
The final layer on this one, they're saying a normal final lift is 1.5 inches, and he's saying somewhere around a 3/4 inch with striping at the end, which would give it the nice black top, but it would essentially be half of what a normal final lift would be. He would put the final lift on much earlier, but then we would have a maintenance bond that would cover essentially half of that at the very end.
To explain a little more, he's wanting to put the entire structure in. Right now, in the roads that we're having issues with, the typical is 6 to 8 inches of soil cement with anywhere from 2.5 inches to 3 inches of asphalt, ultimate build out. He's proposing 10 inches of soil cement with 3.5 inches of asphalt. That is gonna significantly reduce any repairs, and so we actually have a bid in our term bid contract for paving for it. It's very common for thin lift asphalt that can vary from 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick. To protect us, I think the structure's there, so we shouldn't have a structural problem. It's aesthetics. If you do have some patching to do, a thin lift of asphalt would add a little bit of structure, but in reality, you're not looking for structure at that point. You're just looking for solid portions of asphalt. New look.
Cosmetic.
Right.
And from our standpoint, we have the Main Street design with this. The buildings that are in play here have got on-street parking, the boulevard and the sidewalks down across the front, and the diagonal parking along the frontage of the buildings. That diagonal parking is actually part of the roadway. So without that final lift, we don't have the on-street parking, which causes a parking issue with us. It's something new to our design. This is the first kind of Main Street feel we've got. So if we leave it as a bottom layer of asphalt without a final lift to allow those first two mixed-use buildings that are going in with the commercial and the lofts on top, essentially the parking along the frontage, the Main Street frontage, will not be there. So, like I said, it's a different animal in itself.
If I may add, I think some of the board members probably have the same questions that I did. And I know Brian is, we have the same goals. Brian wants to, put the roads in. We want to do it in the most efficient way. We're not going back and repairing, subsurface issues later to make it the most cost-effective way to do it. And my only concern, that my question was answered by Dan this morning, we want to make sure that the city, when it is, whatever that time frame is, when it is finally done, that the city does have a mechanism in place to get that final lift on the top, which in essence gives us a brand new road at the end. And that was my concern. I didn't want to, turn it over indefinitely. Just witnessing the problems that I've witnessed over the last 6 years with the residential developments that, that struggled in 2008 and 2009. We don't want to duplicate that problem again. And I'm confident that this will eliminate that problem. My main concern again is that we do have the final lift at the end. And if I'm understanding this correctly, Dan, please confirm that we will have a bond will remain in place that does any final patching and the final thin layer of new asphalt at the end.
Correct. There's gonna be a bond in place, and actually, that's another component that's a little different than what we typically
Correct.
do. This bond is gonna be year by year evaluated and renewable based off the city's decision. Now, Brian brought up a good point. It's kind of a open-ended bond amount, but after 3 or 4 years of performance, at some point, we're gonna wanna take it and feel like we're protected, and he's gonna wanna eliminate the bond. But it's basically renewable year by year. If it's not performing, then we can take it and spend it, or he can do the work in kind at that point. But instead of it being a 80% complete, the bond's released, and then you go to a maintenance bond, a warranty bond of 1 year, in this instance, we're gonna keep it in place renewable yearly, that amount. So we'll have it for an extended amount of time.
Can we get it to, would it be a problem to have it, the final layer be an inch? I just don't want to see us getting in a situation where
Right.
we're putting in and it's so thin that we, something
Right.
happens within the 2 or 3 years and we're having to do it all over again.
No, and yes, you can put in, and basically a thin lift is just a smaller aggregate. Actually, you'll like it as a surface, because a lot of times you see large aggregate, and that's not what people are used to as a surface course. Thin lift is even smaller aggregate size.
So you won't
And like I
see
said,
the
it can lay from a ½ inch to an inch.
Okay.
And we have that in there. To actually do that in the striping, because we know we'll have to do the striping if it's repaired too.
So we're gonna go to the curb, the total lift on there, and then if you put another inch on there, you're gonna be above the curbs, if it's above the side of the curbs.
You'll be, but it'll be less than typical. If you do a 3/4 inch, I don't know that you'll notice it. But yes, you would have some lift above the curb. Probably enough to do a little bit of milling for
That's
transition.
what I was gonna say, you just mill the edges, right?
Yeah. To feather the edges, which is what we do on a thicker lift anyway.
But as long as the city's not left, and again, it's no concern towards Brown specifically. We know Brown has the same goals that we do. But I just want to make sure that the city is protected at the end, whether, if there is some milling needed, or patching, or the final lift, that's all taken into account in the final bond.
Right. Well, and that is the other part about this road, which makes it unique. As it builds through, it's gonna be a local collector road. So while he's building off section, the road is ultimately gonna become our responsibility, because it's gonna be it'll have local traffic, more like a collector would than a local road. So,
But you're gonna have heavy traffic due to the construction.
that's true.
which we have asked him, and he's working out a system to keep as much construction off of these roads as possible. And we'll put construction entrances in any place that's feasible for the rest of the construction as well.
Dan, you're comfortable with it?
Yes. Now, I will tell you, there's a few other changes that we talked to Brian about, one being a little more eyes on during the installation of the soil cement by city representatives. And he's already doing testing, but we're gonna require review testing of densities. One of the other issues we have with our current system is we may require 6 inches, but in the past, we have not always gotten 6 inches. So in this instance, it's gonna be important, if we're taking it over sooner, that we have, because you won't have the time for it to develop and determine whether you have a problem, so we need to know that that's in place. So yes, from that standpoint, with some minor modifications, I'm comfortable with it.
You're comfortable with the bond?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve item number 1 on the planning agenda as presented tonight.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Who.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries on item 1.
Item number 2, we have a conditional use permit for a convenience store to be located on the southwest corner of Church Road and W. Ross Parkway. If you will remember, we did a resolution to kind of control the number of convenience stores we have due to traffic, public health and safety issues. It requires that there's only 2 at lighted intersections, must be a major intersection, have to be diagonal and facing opposite ways of traffic. This site does qualify for that. It is actually the only one at this intersection. It's going to be, like I said, it's right across from the Northwest Community College area, so it's a high traffic area. It's the only one at this 4 corners. It was posted appropriately, so by definition, it fits the conditional use permit, and we are requesting approval of it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve item number 2 on the planning agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion on item 2? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Who.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Item 3 is simply the design of this building. If you'll scroll down, it's got the materials used, standard materials that we ask. They've got the red brick, they've got stacked Arkansas stone, they're using bronze materials. The gentleman actually owns or has 2 already approved sites, so he's trying to keep uniform with all of his sites. This was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission, and it is compliant with his other 2 locations.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve item number 3 as presented. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion on item 3? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Who.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is Mayor's report. I've got a few things to update and discuss. But before we do that, we did get the final design of the City Hall renovation project from Urban Art, and I got that after the agenda was set. So tonight, I am going to ask for authorization to bid the City Hall renovation project. This would be with an advertising dates of March 26th and April 2nd, with a projected, or with a bid opening of April 30th. So it's, I'd like a motion to authorize to bid this project.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion?
Is this gonna be phased out, or is?
No, you know, this is, we went back and had another design. Instead of doing it in multiple phases, we redesigned it. We took out a large amount, decreased the cost of it on the exterior. That took it down to a projected 1.7 instead of 3.4. So we believe we can do all this in one phase. And then I meant to tell you too, thank you for reminding me on That does cut timelines down. The projected timeline of construction would be approximately 6 months total.
When are they projecting after the bids come in?
I just estimated that again and talked to Ryan with Urban Arc. If they open the bids on April 30, you're probably looking at, it would be construction beginning sometime in June. Some of the project is going to have materials that have to be ordered, so there'll be a delay with that. But there's some things that they can be doing while the materials are pending. So we still believe that it's a 6-month project. So my math would say that, or my target date that I put on my follow-up calendar was by the end of the year, December 31 completion. Brian's in the audience. Does that sound reasonable?
That's right.
Okay. But it'll be bid with a 150-day construction with an extra 30 days for 30 days for the initial period that for a commencement period.
I was just gonna add that, if that seems a little bit odd, the mayor mentioned that what we're trying to do, we got some pushback from some contractors saying there may not be enough time, but if you did like a letter of intent or allowed us to get our goods together before we actually started construction, we think we could basically hit like a 5-month construction period. So we set it at 6 months, and with the idea being the first month is utilized for them to get all their materials together and kind of, get mobilized and get ready to go. But we will not be precluding them from doing any work in the meantime. So any work that would shut down your operations here, okay? So they could be doing roof work, they could also be doing exterior paint work that would not interrupt any of the city's business at all. And then after that month period is up and they've got all their materials in order, they can get going and basically take like this room out of order to prep it and get it ready and do some other more heavy demolition work that'll involve, public access. So we're trying to mitigate how long that you guys have to go through that painful process.
But just as a total, we're looking at a 6-month.
That's right.
Estimated 6 months.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman who?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. The next thing I want to update you about, many of you are aware, there is an annexation legislation bill that's being proposed by the State House of Representatives. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that today. The only thing I want to do is go on the record as saying that personally, as a mayor of the city, I'm against this legislation. And the reason is I think it sets up problems for the city in the future. I think it's a one-size-fits-all kind of generalized legislation. I think it can be harmful for the cities. It's not that I'm opposed to people in the county having a vote. I'm certainly in favor of that. I think that there's some legal issues about the current bill has a piece in there that requires the city to pay for a referendum for citizens that don't live in our city. Nick has advised me, as have other attorneys have, that they don't believe that that's legal. So that's one thing that's weak about the bill. And then the other thing is, the main point that I've tried to make all along is that every annexation is not the same. I mean, there's some, I've heard the term huge land grabs by cities. That may be the case sometimes, but there's other annexation that makes sense, that is good. And I'll use the example. In the city of Southaven, we have several areas that have residential developments that are just on the outskirts of the city. We have already provided water and sewer to these areas. We have a Class 3 fire rating, which is one of the best in the state. When you get into a volunteer fire department, you're into normally, there's a few 8s, but it's normally 9 and 10s. So the people that live in these areas in the county are already getting a tremendous mutual aid fire and EMS protection from us already. They're also getting the water and sewer. I'm not just talking about the monthly service fees that they pay. I'm talking about paying for the infrastructure to get the lines there. They're already enjoying that. And to me, it's not fair to the city taxpayers if you pass a bill that's going to require that those select people are the only ones that vote on it. Because I'll go ahead and tell you, I was annexed in the city in 2009. I was part of the Summerwood Wood Place. I'm going to speak directly from a person. I love the city of Southaven. When I built my house in 2004 at Grove Meadow subdivision, I was in the county. When I built the home, I thought, hey, I'm either going to be Southaven or Hernando one day. I knew I was going to be Anniston one day. Had no problem with that. But if you had given me a vote and told me, would you like to have all the city services for free and not pay a 40% increase in city taxes, there's no way in the world I would have voted for annexation. My point is, who would vote for that?
Right.
And so I'm just trying to point out the weaknesses of the bill, and I've spoken to our legislators. I've tried to communicate this. I think they're listening. I hope that they are. But I just want to go on the record of saying that my comments have nothing to do with Olive Branch's annexation. But when this bill was proposed, it directly affects the city of Southaven in a future comprehensive plan. And that's why I spoke out about it. But those are the main points I've tried to communicate. One other quick thing that I do want to be on the record of noting, there are potential economic developments that part of the contingency of them locating in DeSoto County are that they receive city services. And as y'all know, we've talked about potentially getting a corporate headquarters here at some point. That would be the ultimate economic development that this county's never had. With I-269 opening, some of the areas in Southaven could be prospects for a huge corporate headquarters. Let's just hypothetically say that this company comes in and they say, hey, we want to relocate to DeSoto County, Mississippi, but we want to be in a city. And at that point, this area where they want to locate mainly is a rural area just outside city limits. Let's just say, for example purposes, that there's only 5 people that would vote. Well, basically, you're talking about something that would bring tremendous economic benefits to the entire county and entire state. This bill, in its current form, will allow those 5 people to vote it down. And I don't think people have thought that through. And I've tried to point that out to the legislators. But I want to go on the record, as I said, I've just mentioned that the reason I'm involved in this is because I view it as very harmful for the city of Southaven and potentially for DeSoto County in the future. But is there any other discussion? I know that y'all know that I've been in discussion with the legislators. Are there any questions that any of you had about anything, any comments I've made, or just any comments in general about annexation legislation?
Is it still in committee now, or has it come out of the committee?
It's not come out yet, but I've been told mixed information. I've been told that it is coming out, but it's my understanding that it's not come out of the House committee at this point.
I think you did a good job of addressing it, and I agree with what you had to say. So thank you for doing that and for voicing that, and letting people know that they're not going to vote for it. I mean, nobody's going to vote to have increased taxes. So I think that was important facts that you brought out. I appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Especially when they're getting it for free.
Free moving the county.
Yes, yeah. And again, it's just there's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Annexations are all different, and it appears to me that's why the current process is in place for it to be in court and let a judge hear it. So.
Well, I don't think
There already are avenues already for them to, if they don't like it, they can appeal it and everything else, right? So
Certainly.
one size fits all legislation that works. So prove it.
But isn't this a specialized, this is just for our county?
It's a local and private bill that would only apply to DeSoto County. Well, there was another bill this session that was proposed, coincidentally by one of our DeSoto County legislators that failed. It was a statewide bill, very similar to this, that failed. But this one is a local and private bill. Okay, I didn't want to take a whole lot of time. Is any other comments on that? We'll move on. Alderman Flores mentioned to me about the ICSC, the huge retail conference in Las Vegas that's May 19th through 22nd. Last year, we had several city representatives that went, and we just wanted to discuss that. I talked to our planning director, Whitney Cook. We had a degree of success last year. We met some of the local developers. When I say local, I'm just talking about the Memphis Metro in general, that already had their eye on some properties in Southaven. So we felt like it was time well spent, that we're able to spend some time with them, answer some questions. But this conference is huge. Alderman Gallagher was there, Alderman Brooks was there, and anybody else go besides Whitney?
Just Whitney.
But it was massive. I mean, it's an unbelievable conference that you have, just about every company all around America is there, it seemed like, but, Whitney's recommendation is maybe we do this, and don't let me misspeak, every other year, or do you think it's necessary to do it every year?
I mean, if we're out, I mean, if there's big developments, like Silo Square was a big deal when we were going through there last year, so it's one to kind of grab and look for some developments coming through. Tanger was coming through. I mean, I think it's usually a case-by-case basis. I think every other year is a really good concept.
Yeah, but I don't think it does any harm going, because, I mean, anytime you go out there and
It's
get
a
your
great
face in
conference.
front of some prospects, I think it's good. But anyway, I just wanted to, Alderman Flores mentioned it, we've not had a chance, or we've not discussed it, but if y'all will, y'all think about that at our next meeting, let's make a decision as to whether we go this year or go every other year. Yeah, and possibly doing a booth, yeah, we talked about that, but just give it some thought, and I'll put that back on the mayor's report for the next meeting, and we'll make a decision about that. One other quick thing to update everyone, Nick and Whitney and I have been working together with some communications companies about potential 5G coming to the city of Southaven. A lot of the big metro areas around the country have a ordinance in place that allows extra infrastructure that goes in these heavy traffic areas where there's a lot of call volume. And they put 5G there, and it's outstanding service to people, outstanding communication cell phone service. So we have the potential to have that in Southaven, which would be a really good thing, improve communication and the speed of communication. But I just want you to know it's an exciting thing. We're working on exactly where it does require certain poles that go up, so we want to make sure that we don't pollute the city with too many poles, make sure that we use good judgment on where they're located, and that they're the most efficient location to give the best communication. But we're excited about that. I just want to share that with you. And then, Nick, in the next 2 meetings, we probably should have that finalized.
I hope to have it, we're working, going back and forth in the ordinance, but I hope to have something by end of April, beginning of May for our final ordinance for the city's review, and then maybe possible approval or any other questions y'all may have on it, so.
Yeah, and so that'll be on an agenda in the very near future for y'all to look at. Any questions about that? Okay, and that's all that I have this evening. We'll move on. Next on the agenda is our citizens agenda. We did not have anyone that called in advance, but we open up the floor. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak at this time, please come forward and address the board. Does anyone want to speak on this citizens agenda? Okay. Hearing or seeing none, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is our personnel docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the personnel docket as presented on the state.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Gallagher. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, is this public works thing, is that the maintenance tech we talked about a few months back about?
Correct.
Kind of
Yeah,
like that does it all?
Yeah, our facilities department has, in the last budget, we approved a maintenance tech position, which we believe will save us a large amount of money. We're currently paying outside contractors to come do some things that we believe a highly skilled person like this can take care of for us. So that, yes, that's what this is about. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Keith?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is the city attorney's legal update.
Everything I have is on the agenda.
Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is the utility bill adjustment docket.
Mayor, I move we approve the utility bill adjustment docket as presented on the state.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Keith?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
Alderman Flores?
Yes.
That motion carries. All right, next on the agenda are, I understand we have just two, if you pull one. Okay, we just have two claims dockets tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve docket number 1 in the amount of $1,386,213.25, including domain checks.
Second.
On docket 1, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hayes.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Is there a motion to approve docket 2?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve docket number 2 in the amount of $327,942.58.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion for docket 2? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay, next, is there a motion to determine the need for executive session?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Kelly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The need this evening is litigation and claims against the city, economic development with potential business and industry locating to the city, and parks personnel. Is there a motion to declare executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Toots. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The mayor and board will now enter executive session.